After the huge backlash from The Phantom Menace, George Lucas was actually hesitant to start writing the follow-up Attack of the Clones. In fact, he didn't even complete the rough draft until 3 months before principal photography was due to start. He even brought in a second writer to help him with one of the drafts, meaning that this is the only film in the prequel trilogy to have a co-writing credit to someone else. You'd think that would make this the best film in the trilogy. You'd be completely wrong if you thought that. The film was released in 2002, 3 years after The Phantom Menace, and once again people were not kind to this movie. It is generally considered to be much better than Episode 1, but still very few consider it to be an actually good movie. Luckily the plot for this movie is a little bit less complicated, so hopefully I won't spend so long talking about it, although it's only a tiny bit less complicated. The film is set 10 years after the previous movie. We see Padme, who is now the Senator of Naboo instead of the Queen, arriving in Coruscant to vote on a plan to create an army to help the Jedi against the threat of a separatist movement led by former Jedi Master Count Dooku, played by Christopher Lee. However, when arriving, she narrowly avoids an assassination attempt. Because of this, she is put under protection by Obi-Wan, who is now a Jedi Knight, and Anakin, who is now Obi-Wan's apprentice and also now played by Hayden Christensen. They then thwart another assassination attempt and chase after the assassin. They finally catch the assassin, however, before she can reveal the identity of her bounty hunter, she is killed by a poisoned dart. The Jedi Council assigns Obi-Wan to identify and capture the bounty hunter. Meanwhile, Anakin is assigned to escort Padme back to Naboo. While looking after her, the two fall in love. While investigating, Obi-Wan is led to the planet Kamino. There he discovers an army of clones being produced for the Republic, with the template being bounty hunter Jango Fett. Obi-Wan realizes that Jango is the bounty hunter he is after, so he follows him and his son Boba to a planet called Geonosis. At the same time, Anakin is constantly having premonitions of his mother in deep pain, so he travels with Padme to Tatooine to save her. They meet Owen, who is Anakin's stepbrother, who tells them that Anakin's mother was kidnapped by Tusken Raiders weeks prior and may be dead. Anakin sets out to find her and finds her dying from the wound she received while being tortured. In a rage, Anakin kills all the Tusken Raiders. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan discovers it was Count Dooku who ordered the assassination of Padme and that he is working with Newt Gunray from the previous movie to rebuild the droid army. Obi-Wan transmits his findings to Anakin, however is captured while doing so. Anakin and Padme then go to rescue him but also get captured. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is then given emergency powers and is allowed to send the clone army into battle. Obi-Wan, Anakin and Padme are sentenced to a live gladiator-esque execution where they are attacked by large creatures. However, they are saved by Jedi and clone troopers, including Mace Windu, played by Samuel L. Jackson. While the clone and droid armies are battling, Obi-Wan and Anakin find Count Dooku and have a battle with him. However, Count Dooku injures Obi-Wan and severs Anakin's arm. So in comes Yoda, I don't need to explain who he is, if you don't know him then just go watch the movies, who fights Count Dooku. After realising that he won't win, Count Dooku flees. He goes to Coruscant and gives plans for a super weapon to Darth Sidious. The Jedi then acknowledge that they are nearing the beginning of the Clone Wars. Anakin is fitted with a robotic arm, marries Padme in secrets because being in love is against the rules of being a Jedi, and the film ends with him looking into the distance, similar to the end of The Empire Strikes Back. In fact, there are many similarities between this film and Empire. George Lucas said that he wanted the trilogy to be similar to the last, where every single film has similarities to their equivalent in the original trilogy. He takes the love theme that was in Empire, brings it back and then butchers it, giving us one of the most awkward love stories in film history. But we're getting ahead of ourselves now, we're supposed to look at what I like about this movie. This film as a whole is a lot faster than the previous movie. Now don't get me wrong, there are way too many slow scenes full of exposition that seem to go nowhere, but there are loads more action scenes and overall it makes the film much more enjoyable. There are many scenes in this movie that I think are actually really good. Even a couple of scenes that aren't action based. For example, the scene in the bar. I don't know why, but I really like this scene. I also don't mind the big chase scene that I know everyone seems to hate. Also the scene when Anakin gets revenge on the people who killed his mother. This is the first time we see a little bit of darkness in him and it's actually really well done. It's just a shame that we never really get much more of this. Instead of being that dark before turning to the dark side in episode 3, he just constantly whines about things. The lightsaber battles are all well done again, in fact much better than the previous movie. And as a whole this film feels much more active than the previous movie, which at times just felt very lifeless. Also, as overly glossy and ridiculously overused as it is, the effects are actually not that bad. Like, even now, they've not aged well, but they still aren't terrible. And the designs of everything look fantastic. I love the weird look of those tall white creatures on Kamino, and also the space scenes really look pretty. This is just a good looking film as a whole. I'm also really glad that this film has a much more simple and easy to follow plot than the previous film did. There are also very few big things that don't add up between this film and the original trilogy. In fact, this film has less than my favourite in the prequels Revenge of the Sith does, so that's good I guess. Now to get onto the bad things. The exposition scenes are still incredibly dull and boring, because George Lucas just does not know how to write exposition or dialogue for that matter. Many of these scenes would be better if they actually showed us these things happening instead of just having someone speak about it. It'd be like if someone just sat down and told you the entire plot of the movie but in a very monotone and uninterested voice. The dialogue is also some of the worst I've ever heard in a film. The previous movie had bad dialogue, but it wasn't laughably bad like this film and Revenge of the Sith is. The worst dialogue being during the love scenes. Speaking of which, the scenes of Anakin and Padme falling in love are absolutely atrocious. The two share no chemistry together. Instead, they just have conversations about how much they hate sand. Like seriously, if you want to make us believe that they're actually falling in love, show us something that shows that properly. Instead, the scenes of them together we get are just terrible and shows nothing. It also doesn't help that the acting really is not good. Once again, I don't blame the actors. I know for a fact these are good actors who have done good things. It's just George Lucas is getting the worst out of them. As well as this being dull, I found the story as a whole being pretty dull. The Phantom Menace didn't really do anything at all noteworthy in the Star Wars universe. Attack of the Clones has a few important moments, but really most of the film doesn't matter when it comes down to the story. I mean, all that really matters is that Anakin and Padme get together, and also that the clones are handed over to Palpatine. Very few things in this film are actually important. Jar Jar Binks is only in a couple of scenes in this movie. This is a good thing, however because they don't have him as the comic relief, they decide to replace him with C-3PO and R2-D2. These scenes are absolutely terrible. We just see C-3PO in a place where he shouldn't be, getting into loads of wacky situations. They basically just throw a load of slapstick at us. It just isn't funny. During a large battle scene, showing C-3PO doing something stupid doesn't make us laugh, it just completely takes us out of the action. All in all, that's really the only big problems I have with this film. It's definitely a big improvement over The Phantom Menace, and there is a lot that I enjoy about this film. The action scenes are all really good and entertaining, it's just the stiff acting and exposition that really brings the film down. It's not a bad film, and it's definitely above average, I just am not a huge fan of it. I give Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones a 6 out of 10.